Alright guys, it's Dokkan time again. That's about as much hype energy as I got. So, this video is going to be a boss guide. I can't really define it any more than that. I have made some templates and some graphics to show you the boss fights for certain units. Today's boss fight is going to be for the Stage 8 of Birth of the Shadow Dragons, Omega Shenron. Now I'm going to go over all of the abilities the bosses have, all the AoEs, the damage numbers, the defense numbers, things that you should keep in mind and be wary of as you're fighting him and going into it as a global player. Perhaps you already know about this, and that's fine. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you have that knowledge. That's amazing. Not everyone does. You know, newer players, they want that kind of info. They don't know where to look. Some people just don't know. And that's what this video is for. It's just to show you, have a visual guide to see what this boss's stats and everything are like. That's what I hope to convey here. So, let's get started with the first unit here, which is going to be the Phase 1 Omega Shenron. And he is an extreme tech unit. And we'll go down straight to his Dragon Thunder super attack. We'll start with his super attack, and then we'll go over the rest of his stuff. He does 800k damage on that super attack. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, here on the bottom right here of this image, his type of super attack, I have the icon on here. His type of super attack is classified as Other. So, keeping that in mind, you know, like, Ultimate Gohan / Beastless Gohan, you know, his P deflection ability, his it's not gonna work here. It has to be an ability. It has to be something else. So, knowing what type of super attack the boss does gives you more options of what you know what'll work against him or what kind of odds you have. He also cancels dodge. So on the first fight here, you cannot dodge. The first phase. It's only the first phase. It's only the first phase. Stage 2 and 3, you can dodge. But the first phase of this fight, you cannot dodge. That's something you should keep in mind depending on units you bring in. So, also, his super attack can randomly seal and or stun. It's not both. I know it's hard to I couldn't think of a way to go that. I probably should have just put or in between the middle of it. I'll probably update that image later. But he also raises his defense up. He raises his defense by 30%, and he can stun or seal any unit he super attacks. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, you probably noticed that in the middle there's this little 5 with the limit gauge with the super attack on it. That's a custom-made icon that I made to let you guys know that it takes 5 attacks in between the super attack going off. So if he super attacks, he has to do 5 attacks before he can launch another super attack. So that's something you should keep in mind when you see him throwing a super at you. That way you can kind of estimate when the next super attack's going to come in, and you can move your units around accordingly. Now, his HP is 300 and... not 300. It's 33 million HP. He's got 320k attack. Now, that 320k attack is his default normal. So 320k attack will be going into that. So make sure you keep in mind of any of your units that you put into slot 1. If they are starting off on slot 1, you know, and they got less than 300k defense, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So just keep in mind of that. He's only got 100k defense. He has damage reduction of 65%, and he can attack 8 times in a single turn. So with that in mind, if he... Let's just play this image out in our heads. If he normals 3 times, and he supers right after that, that means he still has to wait 5 attacks to do another super. So you'll go through the attacks on that turn. You'll go on to the next phase. He'll do 1 more normal attack, and then he could potentially be super attacking you right there and then. I don't think it's guaranteed after 5 attacks, but it is something you should keep in mind of keeping track. Like, okay, even if these are normals, he could super at any time. So, and like I said in this fight, this is the only time where this guy can dodge. He's not going to be able to dodge in Phase 2 or 3. He dodges in Phase 1. He makes it so you can't dodge, and he can stun and seal you. The first fight is a little bit more crazy on that, but an interesting thing to keep in mind here is that you can stun him. You can stun this guy. You can stun him, you can seal him, You can lower his attack, you can lower his defense, you can do all of that to this guy on the first phase. But going into the second phase, you do not have that option. You cannot lower his attack, you cannot lower his defense, you cannot stun him, you cannot seal him. But you get your dodge chance back, so there's that to keep in mind, and he doesn't dodge either. So, Phase 2, Omega Shenron, he's an extreme STR type. He now has the ability to AoE. Now keep in mind, the AoE damage is the same as his base attack stats. So, HP is 40 million, his attack is 400k, those AoEs will be 400k, just like his normals will. His defense is 130k, he has 68% damage reduction, and he can attack 9 times in a given turn. Now, with that in mind, if you look down here on the AoE part of the graphic that I've made here, hold on a sec. Let me move this image to make it a little bit easier to view. So I've made a little bit of an icon right there to let you know what an AoE looks like. So I just made a little key ball in there and threw out arrows all over the place because it's going to just go everywhere. The first AoE does 400k. That's his base attack. Every AoE after that does 360k. But, if you didn't notice, right here, on his super attack, Gigantic Blaze, he does 1.1 million damage, but he also does 50% increase on his attack. So now what that means is on his 50% increase on his attack is that those AoEs could be stronger. So if he doesn't super before doing his AoEs, then he's just doing 400k. If he supers, if he supers before the AoEs, his AoE damage can go up because then his attack is going up by 50%. Now it doesn't mean he's going to be at freaking like 800k attack. No, he'll be at like probably 600k. 600k is a very big difference. 500 to 600k damage. I don't know the math. I'm not good at math. You can go to Greg.YT for that, and you can go over to Halberd on Twitter for the calculations for damages and defenses. But I know my straight numbers, and 50% of 400 is about 200k. So logically, he's going to have a 600k freaking attack stat if he supers before he AoEs. So keep track of if you have like a scouter ability, and if he's super attacking first, those AoEs will destroy a large portion of units in the game. It's just something to really keep in mind. It can get you caught off guard, especially if you didn't have time to build up your units or whatever team you built in the first phase. So that's something to keep in mind. He does have, I think he has a cool, I'm pretty sure I either didn't add it or he actually does not. Let me triple check that real quick. So yeah, he only supers once per turn. He doesn't have a cooldown on his super. He supers once per turn. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, 1.1 million damage on his super. He raises his attack by 50%. He's still an other type super attack. Those AoEs can really catch a lot of people off guard. Really can. We can catch people off guard. And he can attack 9 times a turn. So let's move on to the final unit here, or the final phase, which is Extreme Intelligence Omega Shenron. Now, he once again can also AoE. He has 500k AoEs, normals. He's got 500 attack. He's got 150% defense. Damage reduction is 75%. He can attack 10 times in a turn. And he's got 75 million HP. Now, he can AoE 3 times in a single turn. That's quite a bit, but unlike the STR Omega, he does not increase his attack on super. So at least you don't have to worry about that. But it's still 500k AoE attacks coming at you. It's the equivalent of the Intelligence Fusion Masu from Red Zone. So that's something to keep in mind. He will only super every 5 times. So keep in mind he attacks 10 times in a turn. So he can very well super attack twice in a turn if you're very unlucky. It's very possible that that could happen. So keep an eye out on how many normals he does before he supers. His freaking hellish dragon slaying super attack does 1.4 million damage. There's very few units in the game that can survive that without damage reduction and or an item, or just straight up dodging. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to make a graphic for people to visually be able to see what this boss that's coming to Global tonight is gonna do. So, obviously, you know, not everybody needs to see this. They know where to find this kind of information. I'll put this up on my DeviantArt, and I'll put a link in the description below so people can go grab the image, you know, just take a look at it anytime you need to. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. Do you want me to do other bosses? Do you want me to compare bosses? I mean, just give me ideas here. I'm trying to help you all out, trying to do what I can here. So, anyways, guys, good luck with your fight with Omega Shenron tonight on Global, and have a good day and a good night.